guys, I'm back and today we are doing the absent mother. Ooh. And I'm gonna spend a lot of time here, so this video might be longer than the others, and if needs be, maybe it will be two parts because we want to talk about the absent mother because it is a dominant topic and dominant theme, at least with my clients as well. At some point when I'm coaching and I'm talking to someone in session, the absent mother rears its interesting head. And it makes a lot of sense for us South Africans Black South Africans to have had absent mothers in whatever form. And I'm gonna just list the ways that a mother can be absent, both physically and emotionally, because absence is not just physically, physical absence is the most obvious, but obviously there's emotional absence, spiritual absence, and absence in ways that a child might need and the mother is absent, they're missing in action, not because of her own doing, but because she doesn't know how to show up in that way. And what the impacts are, and what do we need to do as adults who had absent mothers, because then it's on you. It falls on you. I mean, it's one thing to cry and have a mother wound of an absent mom, and blame the mom and bemoan the mom and do whatever, but it's on you now. You are now the mother, or you are now the woman. How do we then transmute that? How do we transmute that pain? How do we turn it into something meaningful so that it does not perpetuate? How do we break that pattern? And usually, what I've noticed, and this is just anecdotal, really, please don't quote me, when women who've had lots of trauma from the mom, particularly the absent mom, they then get daughters. And you know what they say, right? Spiritually, when you have your first child, particularly, is a daughter, it means the pattern is going to continue, or the lessons that your maternal line needed to learn, they didn't quite get it right. So it then moves on to the next one. When you have a son, your first child is a son, a new lesson is emerging. So basically, an old pattern is broken, and then the son is going to take on a different path. And again, these are the things that if you're interested in them, we can have them in a different platform outside YouTube. Just go on my website, subscribe to my newsletter because I want to keep these things coming. And, one of the things I would like us to have is a monthly Zoom, but I'm still feeling into it. I'm still thinking about it. And we'll see. Maybe towards the next year at Labona. So the issue of the absent mom is that deep. And the reason we as South African people have had absent moms is because of our history. So we can't talk about absent moms as South Africans outside the context of history, outside the context of colonialism and apartheid. So that is a major part of it. And before I go into that rabbit hole, maybe let me rein it in and then let's just talk about how a mother is absent and what impacts it has on you as an adult now if you experienced an absent mother in some form or the other. And the interesting about the absent mother is that, you can have a nurturing mother who's absent in other ways. I'm an example of that. You can have a protective mother who's absent in other ways. And this is why this one is very important. It's almost a different level of talking here. You can have a protective mother who doesn't know jack about teaching you life skills. All they know is to beat up everybody, to be the bully themselves, you know. So this absent mother thing, as you're listening to this video, you need to locate where your mom was absent and then connect the dots in how you show up as an adult today. Where was the wounding? Because the mother wound comes from those little absence, and a lot of people who don't understand mother wound, the first thing when we talk about mother wound, the first thing they say, they're like, oh, my mother loved us so much. My mother did everything for us to make sure that we go to school and all that. We are not talking about that. That's fine. That means her dominant side was whatever, nurturing, protecting, teaching, perhaps. But there are areas where she was absent that may have created some form of a wound. And the wound does not need to be seen as she was a bad mom. The wound need to be seen as something that, how do I heal this part so that I can become a better person, better version of myself, better adult, better partner, better mother, better colleague, better friend. That's how important this topic is. So let's start with how one becomes an absent mother, ways of being absent. So let me, as usual, wear my glasses and then look at my notes. So let's start with the most obvious, which is the physical absence, because that's the most straight up mama hayo kontlung, and what can possibly make her absent. The first real one, I mean, this one is just like straight up in your face, is death. Your mom could have died. So you don't have a mother because your mom has passed away, especially in the first formative years, the first 21 years. Your mom passed away from 0 to 10, or in your teen years, or in your early 20s, before you became an adult. Let's put it that way. So you've had an absent mother. You may have been mothered by other people. You may have been shown love and motherly love from a stepmom, from an auntie, from whatever, but your real mom, Otswalan, passed on, and that gap, as far as I've heard, from the clients I've heard, from the friends I've heard, it doesn't quite go away. That little gap is always sort of there. Okay. So it's that. The second way is a mom leaving the home because of divorce, where you end up being raised by a father. So you did not have the mother figure, and your father did not marry someone else, did not bring a step parent or step mom. So you end up being raised by a father. Another way is your mom getting lost. We don't know where she disappeared to. Ba itse o ile exile, ba itse o ile America, ba itse o tsamaile. Your mom is lost. And that brings about a very, very interesting pain. Okay, this is going to take me through another tangent. So I'll tell you that story some other time. I have a friend whose mom is lost. So that's a very, very weird vibe. Your mother might be absent because she's a migrant labor. She's working in another town. She's working in another city. She's working in another country, even. So hard thing physically, but uteng, physical presence. Yes, working in another city, another province. Your mother might be absent because she's incarcerated. Your mom's arrested. She did whatever, ba mo tshwere, ba mo gwebile 15 years, whatever years, so your mom is not present, okay? Your mom might not be present and be absent because she's ill. She's in hospital, she's in a mental institution, she's not physically here at home, she's not mothering her thing, she's absent because wakula. Another ways of being physically absent, although it's also emotional, it's if she's an addict. But I think this one more falls in the emotional and spiritual, because she's here every day at home, but she's either high or drunk or out of it. So I'll put that probably on the emotional side. And then the others is that your mom works long hours. Maybe your mom is a CEO, or quite senior, or an entrepreneur. She's just physically never home enough, and that renders her absent in some ways, like yoga the weekend busy, or your mom is a minister of a church, or your mom is in politics. Politics keeps mothers out of their homes for many, many months. They're always working, they're always in parliament, they're always traveling. So those are the physical absent, and I'm sure you can find your mom somewhere there in terms of physical absence. And then there's the emotional absence. Now, this is when your mother is home. What, every day goes to work, comes home, or sometimes she works from home, or sometimes she doesn't work at all, but she's always physically present with you at home. But she is spiritually, emotionally, psychologically, nobody's home. And that then shows up in the following ways, where your mom is depressed. Your mom might just be clinically depressed. Every time I talk, examples come to mind, and I'm just cognizant to which sometimes it's important to get permission from people before I speak about them. But when I thought of depression, a friend of mine came to mind, someone came to mind. But you're depressed, you are just not there. You come home, you go to bed, you wake up, you go to work, you come home, you go to bed, you don't interact, you don't cook, you don't engage with your children. You are just emotionally unavailable because of depression. Because that depression maybe comes from an old trauma, maybe from grief, maybe from being completely overwhelmed, maybe from continuous chronic stress at work, maybe from a broken heart, maybe from addiction. Like I say, you have an addiction, and you just cannot function without having that glass of wine or that bottle of wine every evening. You are just not there. Uteng mara uyo. So there are many, many factors to being emotionally absent for your child, or your mother may have been emotionally absent for you. So you'll notice that I'm talking about you and I'm talking about mothers because that's just how important this is. So as you're listening, thinking of your mother, think of you as well and how your mothering is. Think of your own availability to your own children right now, and whether it's physical or whether it's emotional, or sometimes it could be both, where even if the person is physically home, hiding, but they're generally never around, So it's a very interesting one and a very sensitive one, this one. So how does an absent mother impact the child? And I mean, in this case, we can say parent, but we're talking about mothers, and we will talk about fathers some other times. So how does an absent mother impact the child? And what kind of adult do we then end up having from the absent mother? So first of all, what goes on in the child's internal system is that I am not important. My needs don't matter. Nobody's coming for me. Just from an absent mother, whether it's emotional absence or it's physical absence. I have to figure life on my own. Yes, I'm literally on my own. No one is coming. Love is absent. Love is unreliable. What else? I must never ever depend on anyone, because if you could not depend on your own mother, the one who births you, the first love of your life, everyone else can't then give this to me. Do you see how gaping it becomes? So it just creates that in a child's psyche. And then and then the child grows up to become an adult who is hyper independent. Does it sound familiar? Who are the most hyper independent people in South Africa right now? It's a lot of Black women. That might not necessarily come from absent mother only. There are many, many factors. I mean, we live in a complex country and a complex world, but the absent mom, you find that it is always there somehow. When you sit with someone who's hyper independent, the mother is a big part of it. Okay. So you find hyper independent adult. You find women who have difficulty receiving help. Even if help can just be thrown in their lap, they will not receive it. They'll take help and put it over there and do things on their own. Fear of abandonment. Very, very visceral, very deep, this thing. So deep that because you fear abandonment, you abandon others first. There's that dynamic, which we'll talk about some other time. Anxiety, huge part of an adult who is anxious comes from an absent mom. Anxiety, particularly in relationships, because why? Relationships are love spaces. And where there's love spaces where you had an absent mom, which means love was unreliable, it creates anxiety in the relationship where you then become the abandoner or the avoidant. It becomes very messy. Okay. Attracting emotionally unavailable partners because it's safe. Isn't it safe to attract someone who's not going to be there? Because that's what you know. You don't know present love. You don't know present warmth because your mom was absent, emotionally absent, physically absent, or a combination of two. So emotionally unavailable partners match. They are what you want, even though you claim to want the opposite. And how do you deal with it? You need to heal. That's why we are here. That's why life coaches are here. That's why therapy is here to help you with all of these things. Okay. You develop as an adult who had an absent mom, you develop people pleasing tendencies. And people pleasing comes from phoning. When you're in survival mode, you are either fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. Fawn, ke go ingengela. When danger is here, instead of running, you can't run, you can't fight, you can't freeze. Ingengela, Stockholm syndrome type of vibes. So people pleasing comes from there. You people please. You take care of everybody else. You become the doormat. You are the one that will do it. I'll do it. I'll do it. Oh, no, no. Yeah, you people pleasing and chronic dominating comes generally from having had an absent mom. And it goes on being the strong one, difficulty identifying your own needs. I remember this one client. I don't know how many times I gave her different journal prompts, making it slightly differently so that she can come up with a way of identifying her own needs. She could not relate to what she needed. it's the most fascinating. So, always being the strong one, not knowing what your needs are, feeling lonely or that deep sense of melancholy, even when you're surrounded by people. And the list goes on. It depends. As I'm doing this video, I'm hoping that you are locating yourself somewhere there. But that is the impact of an absent mom. It is deep, it is bad, it needs healing. That's where the mother wounding comes from. And that's why we want to heal our mother wounds as much as we can. I always say that if you heal your mother wound, you have done 60% of the work. The rest is just the residue. But the mother wound is the one to deal with because it impacts everything. Everything, as you can see with this list. And this list is just the basic of the basic of the basic. So, the thing now with an absent mom, because remember I said there's duality, there's the good side and there's a bad side. I suppose the good side, if you like, of having had an absent mom is that you learn to rely on yourself, you learn to take care of yourself, you learn to be independent. Obviously, hyper independence is the opposite side, is the shadow side. You learn to stand on your own 2 feet. You become strong, and maybe those are good. They only become bad when you don't know how to unplug from that, when you don't know how to be in an interdependent relationship, when you create codependency. Please go watch my videos on codependency. So, it has its own silver lining, but in and of itself, absent mother wins. And the I can't even say benefits. The thing with it is that we need to heal it so that we don't pass it on to the next generation. So if your mother was absent in certain aspects, that's what you want to closely watch and guard within you so that you don't bleed it over into the next generation, into your children. Okay. So perhaps the beauty of it, for lack of a better word, is that then the onus is on us to heal those aspects. It's on you to heal those aspects so that so that we break that generational curse, because it's a curse, it's a generational something. Okay, so that's where the depth of an absent mother is. It's deep, deep healing, and not just healing of yourself, but healing of the next generation and her and your own mother. One of the things that sounds like magic until they happen to you is this. When I always say to my clients that when you heal, when you begin healing work, when you come for coaching and you begin healing work, you don't only heal yourself, you will heal your daughter and you will heal your mother. And it's like, it sounds like, yeah, whatever, it sounds cool until you start healing. And then suddenly your mother talks to you differently. Suddenly your mother starts opening up to things that she would never have had because all this is it's energetic. We affect each other. Suddenly your daughter is on a different vibe because you started healing. Because as you heal, you change her and you change her. That's why it's so important, particularly the mother wound healing. Okay, so let me see, what else did I want to add? So at the heart of the adults who had an absent mom is grief. It's grief of not having had the mother you wished you had, not having had the conversations you needed to have, the comfort you needed, the guidance you needed, the things you needed. So at the core of it, it's just deep, deep grief. And that's what we heal when we help you heal the mother wound. We help you face that grief and you deal and we let it pass through your body. And once again, we don't heal until we get in the body. You have to feel it. It has to move through the body. It has to be somatic. It's not just cognitive. You don't think about healing. You feel into it and you allow it to move. You allow those shaking, those tremors, those tears, those screams, those vibration, yeah, so that it gets out. That's deep, deep, deep somatic healing. Okay. So that at the end of the day, what you end up having for your mom, who was absent in whatever form, is deep, deep compassion, forgiveness. Do you see how we didn't rush to forgiveness? When I do mother wound teachings, mother wound healing, forgiveness is the last module. It's the last part. Uh, because you can't start there. You need to process everything. And once you've done the healing, once you've done the real work, forgiveness almost comes automatically. You don't even have to think about it. It becomes it becomes less, I forgive you, and more, it's all forgiven. It is all forgiven. It becomes forgiven, and it's not an act that you do, you know. So yeah, that is, I hope this has done it justice because I wanted to really just stay here for a bit and deal with the absent mom. And I hope you appreciate that the absent mom means many things. My mom was absent in protection. And wow, why am I getting emotional? There's an area in my life that I wish she would have protected me, but she did not have the capacity. Yeah, so find in your line, in your mother, you know, where was she missing in action? And you will know because it's going to make you feel a little bit like I'm feeling now. Was it the teaching? Maybe I didn't need the teaching because I'm the teacher now. You know, I've always been the teacher. Maybe I didn't need a training mom, but I probably needed a protection. You know, what did you not get from your mom that you needed so desperately? Okay. So yeah, that is my story for this one. I don't know how to conclude it actually. This is my story. I cannot wait to hear yours. Where was your mom absent? You don't have to respond on the comments if you don't feel like it, but journal about those things, you know, just think it through and feel it into the body. Feel it in the throat, feel it in the heart, and then see if you can transmit that so that you don't pass it on to your own children, your own daughter in particular, if you have a daughter. Hey, it's my story. I cannot wait to hear yours. This was deep.